Okay, this video is not intended to be controversial, but maybe it will be. But I've had this opinion of Vemuram pedals, and I think it might be something that's shared a little bit online, that these are sort of on the edge of being unreasonably expensive. And there's been like a little bit of a, for me, in the back of my mind, anytime I've demoed a Vemuram, I thought like price has to be the main consideration here. Like that's the elephant in the room, as well as some other aspects. But bearing in mind the old stuff that I said, uninformed and stupid about like the JHS pedals, you know, in another world maybe I make a video saying, oh, Vemuram ripping us off. I had a guy called Cordy reach out from Tokyo, and I asked him a question like, what's the price of Vemuram pedals for guys in Japan? And domestically, something like the Shanks, which in the UK is like £419, they're paying £237 for it, which is actually quite a lot more in line, I think, with the sort of price that we might pay for a boutique pedal made in the UK, like the Origin Effects Deluxe 55 or something like that. So, what's going on here?
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite...
Alright, give it a rest, bud. Anyway, the All Access Pass membership is available for $150 off at the moment up till Christmas Eve if you're looking for an opportunity to get in at that. So $99 for access to all of the TrueFire stuff for a year. Pretty good deal. Maybe I've had like the wrong idea about Vemuram stuff. The way the Vemuram stuff got onto my kind of radar was with the Janray, which you can look up some of this stuff around this. It was embroiled in a bit of controversy for copying essentially Paul Cochrane's Timmy. Paul himself didn't have necessarily scathing comments to make on it, and I think within the pedal industry there is an amount of borrowing from other circuits that goes all the way back to, you know, the Boss OD1, which Ibanez Tube Screamer and those two share some things in common, right? And then on through the years, that seems to be, you know, building off of what one another has done. is kind of the way the industry works in general, right? I think. But as a consumer, that's not generally been my way that I would think about it. But I think that is, within the industry, sort of an accepted thing, right? That the circuits kind of will be somewhat derivative, if not wholly derivative. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, because that might be something that is not necessarily agreed with, but might also be something that people go, yeah, that's kind of what happens. I'd like to, by the way, just tell you that, say, for example, an Ibanez SD9 sounds exactly the same as a Vemuram Butter Machine, but to some extent they're not just clones. I think they do try to make meaningful improvements, and I can see that between these two pedals. So I kind of just recorded, after I'd done the initial bit of playing with the Ibanez SD9 instead. This has more headroom and a wider sort of scope of usable tones, whereas the Ibanez SD9 sort of has a lot of untamed brightness to it, and the normal thing to do is kind of turn that tone way back, but also has way less headroom, so you have to like boost the level to get anywhere near as much level as this on halfway. And then this has some other improvements on the back end of it, so you can control the low mids and you control the amount of sparkle, like presence in the pedals. So they're not just cloning. I think they are genuinely trying to make really good pedals, and pedals that can do what this can do but more. I think that's a good thing, right? Equally, like the Jan Ray has this little saturation trim pot on the back end. In terms of parts, I think the brass enclosure would be a thing that would set them as slightly more expensive than other pedals, right? Like other pedals using just your standard pedal enclosures, you presume would be considerably cheaper. So in terms of the bill of materials, I can see why that might be a bit more expensive. There are apparently new old stock parts being used in these as well, although I think some of them are even gooped, so whether you could get an eye in there to see that or not, I don't know. For me personally, as I said, I'd like to be able to tell you that you can get exactly the same tones as Vemuram pedals from somewhere else, but my honest experience has been that they're actually really good, solid sounding pedals. And I think that's why some pros, you know, Rob Harris from Jamiroquai, for example, Taya Sasato, Josh Smith, I think was the first guy that I remember using a Vemuram, but they end up on people's boards. John Shanks, of course. However, I think you don't necessarily have to get a Vemuram if you don't want to, but the used prices of them are pretty okay. Like, I got this Landau Distortion on Black Friday. I found one used for sort of like $260-ish, I think it was, that I paid for it. This is the Nobel's ODR clone, and I paid $580 for an original one of those. I imagine this is better built than that one. That was a made in Korea. This is made in Japan. You know, decent, solid parts. I think, hopefully, these are going to last a while. This one, my buddy Jake has been borrowing since I grabbed it, and this one is the first time I've actually plugged it in and checked it out. And as I say, I think I prefer it to the SD9. My SD9 doesn't work in bypass mode. This is an original made in Japan one that my buddy Tony up the road tried to fix, but to no avail. So it would work in a switcher, but I think in any case, this sounds better, unfortunately. So if you wanted something in the flavour of the cool thing about this is that they are, you know, within the scope of something like an SD9. This is within the scope of a Nobel's ODR, which they're still making, so you could get something like that for 99 quid. The SD9 Maxon are still making, and Jan Ray, you could get the MXR Timmy if you wanted a cheaper version of that, or the K-Line Pure Sky if you want to really go in at the bottom end. Is actually a pretty decent sounding pedal for the money as well. I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the comments around Vemuram. I've always kind of had it in mind that it's like this super luxury pedal, but again, just internally within Japan, they're not actually crazy money. So this ODS, 237 quid, which is just in line with boutique pedal pricing around the world. It's just that once you import it to the UK or the US, you end up paying considerably more because it's made in Japan. So let me know your thoughts on that. Have you ever tried a Vemuram pedal? Did you like it? Did you not? Have you ever borrowed one off of a friend? Do you have a friend who's addicted to Vemuram pedals? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you in another video soon. Vemuram. Cheers.